Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session by Alumni Relations, where we connect you with some of those people of our IIT Gen community who have made exceptionally well after their journey at IIT Gandhinagar. Today, we have with us Rashid. He graduated with an MA in Society and Culture from IIT Gandhinagar in the year 2021, having worked on multi interdisciplinary projects at some of the India's premier institutes. Rashid is all set to join as a doctoral fellow at the Department of Anthropology at Emory University, Atlanta. He also got selected as the secretary of the Anthropology Graduate Students Association at Emory University. In today's session, we are going to talk about applications for master's and graduate programs at US universities which are about to open. For smooth and timely preparation and submission of applications, it's very crucial to have a thorough understanding of the application process. In this session, Rashid will provide us with an overview of the procedures involved in master's and PhD applications for top US universities. Topics in this talk will range from drafting effective mails to potential supervisors, shortlisting universities, writing SOPs, which is statement of purpose, personal history statements, obtaining LORs, which are letters of recommendation from our referees, and other essential aspects of the applications which we'll be covering soon. So I hand it over to you, Rashid.
All right, Anmol, for the very kind introduction. Let me just start sharing the screen first, right? Uh, right, and good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining today's session in the Alumni Insight series. As Anmol introduced, my name is Rashid, and I am a 2021 MA in Society and Culture graduate from IIT Gandhinagar. And after graduating from IIT Gandhinagar for about the past 2 years, I have been working on different research roles at different research institutes. And currently, I have a fully funded PhD offer from the Department of Anthropology at Emory University. And I will be joining the department sometime during the second week of August. All right. And honestly speaking, I'm really glad to have received this opportunity. While I was a student here, even when I was a staff, I have received, let's say, immense help from my faculties, my seniors, and my batchmates. This was the case even I was preparing for my PhD applications, right? So I personally believe that it's really important that you pass it on the help you receive from your, institute. So, so that's what I'm trying to do, right? So coming to the talk, as advertised by the Alumni Affairs team, this particular session is going to be on applying to US universities. Uh, I will be briefly covering, let's say, the fundamentals of applying to US universities. And I must politely warn you that this is not going to be a discipline-oriented or a discipline-specific talk, but I'll be covering the application procedures common to every discipline, let's say, regardless of your backgrounds, right? Well, right now, moving on, let me just quickly tell you that what we are going to cover in this presentation. So for the convenience of the presentation, the session is categorized into three main parts: the pre-application phase, application phase, and the post-application phase, right? Pre-application phase, which is, I would say, crucial stage, is where you lay the groundwork, let's say, lay the foundation for a successful applications. And during this phase, students usually focus on shortlisting universities. And for PhD candidates, in addition to shortlisting universities and departments, they also shortlist the supervisors in accordance with the research interests and career goals, right? And the second part of this presentation, the application phase, uh, is where you will create, let's say, the core components of your application, the core application materials package that will be submitted to this particular program, right? And here we will be talking about writing a statement of purpose, which is often abbreviated as SOP. and which is a very crucial document, right? And a personal history statement, resume and CV, and letter of recommendation, and other standardized tests. And the last part of this application, this presentation, which is post-application phase, this is a stage that involves, let's say, preparing for the potential interviews and mainly handling the logistics of moving to US, including obtaining a student visa. Getting a student visa is a very rigorous process, right? So we'll talk about that. And before we proceed further, let me also remind you that it's really important for you to keep a track of the application timeline, right? So let's say have a strong grasp of the application timeline as to when does the application is open, when does it is closed, right? Why so? I would say knowing this is particularly important or particularly relevant because it will not only help you prepare the applications on time, but also review, proofread, and revise the materials well in advance and submit them without any delay, right? And coming to the intakes into US universities, there are three general intakes in which students are invited to the universities for different programs, right? The fall intake, where the students are usually invited to the institutes between August to September, admitted between August to September, is the primary intake for most of the US universities, right? Most programs, let's say undergraduate programs, master's programs, and PhD programs invites application during this intake. And most importantly, majority of the scholarship options and majority of the financial aid options are available during this particular intake, right? So the application period for the fall intake, as to the when this application is open, that slightly varies from case to case, right? University to university, but you can expect that the general timeline could be between August to January, right? So some universities may open the applications during, let's say, the second week of January, some during the first week of January, or by the end of September or early October, right? There might be slight variations. However, August to January is a time usually when the applications are open. And once we apply for the universities, the decisions are generally made between January and February. And I would say from my personal experiences, the earlier you prepare, the better the results would be, right? And another two intakes, which is spring and summer intakes, they are secondary intake, and only a fewer programs will be open, and rarely any scholarship, to my limited knowledge. Right, and having said that, let's now get into the pre-application phase. So, as I mentioned initially, you will be researching and subsequently shortlisting the universities and potential supervisors. Excuse me. Right, and let us see what are some of the factors, what are some of the questions that you should be asking yourself before and while you shortlist the universities and institute. First and foremost, right, be it a PhD program, be it a master's program, you should ensure that the program align with your future goals and aspirations. You don't randomly go for any programs, right? So I would say go to the department website, research really well, look into what their alumni are doing, right? And make sure that by the end of the program will equip you with the necessary skills and knowledge to help you reach where you want to reach, right? That's one important point. And the second point that you should be taking into consideration is that does the university have faculty members in my field, right? So let's say having a faculty member or faculty members who specializes in your field means you will have access to mentors, let's say, who can guide you throughout the course of your program. For PhD student, it's mandatory, but this is helpful even at a master's level, right? And the third factor is other funding options available. Generally, for master's programs, they are mostly self-funded. You may receive TA ships during, let's say, alternative semesters. right? And some additional funding you may receive. But generally, they are self-funded. So when it comes to PhD programs, you're devoting, let's say, 5 to 6 years of your life, right? So it's better that if you have a full funding, right? So make sure that it has a good funding which will help you sustain financially as well. And when it comes to reputation, when I mean reputation, I specifically mean ranking, right? Uh, the ranking of the university is something that you need to be very careful of, right? Make sure that you're applying to a place that has good ranking. Because I personally believe that this will have a direct impact on the opportunities that we'll be receiving in the future. For example, I was going through some job descriptions of some of the premier institutes in the country, right, for professorship. So it was specifically mentioned that if my memory serves me right, if you have a degree from a foreign university, it has to be from the top 500 universities, not above that, right? So make sure that the university has a good ranking. You can go to the, you know, QS ranking website. This is a link, and you can find the course-based ranking and overall university ranking here. And especially for the PhD candidates, these are some of the factors that you should be asking yourself, or at least I kept in my mind while I was, doing my shortlisting. Right? First thing first, do your research of do your research area, or let's say the areas of your expertise align with each other, right? So having close research interests or having aligned research interests mean that the supervisors or the supervisors can provide, let's say, relevant guidance and support for your work. And it might also means that these faculties usually have extensive networks of industrial and academic connections. You can also benefit from that, right? So make sure that the faculty that you're shortlisting or considering as a potential supervisor, they have some sort of alignment with your background, so that they'll be able to guide you better, right? And look into their contributions, and you can go to the department website and check their profile for verification purposes. And most importantly, you should be reading some of their works, right? And let's talk about creating a tracking sheet. So this is one strategy many of us followed while preparing for a PhD, right, for a master's, for example. So what is a tracking sheet? So a tracking sheet is simply an Excel sheet or a Google sheet that contains the name of the university and department, name of the potential supervisors with their names hyperlinked, profile hyperlinked, deadline, language test requirement, fee details, and link to the application portal, right? So the purpose of a tracking sheet is to help you assemble all the details that you need at one place, right? So that you don't get confused. Now that you have your shortlist, and this is specifically for PhD applicants, the next step is to reach out to your potential supervisors. I have specifically received some questions regarding this during the registration. So you can see an email a candidate sent to University of California, Santa Barbara, from where this guy had an offer. And let's try decoding it, let's say, to understand what are potentially the important components of an effective email that you should be drafting and sending to a faculty. Right? Let us look into the introduction. It's pretty simple. In one or two sentences, this uh, guy has introduced his personal background and academic background, right? So he started with, I hope this email finds you well. My name is XYZ, and I'm a graduate of this XYZ Institute, and his research experience as well, right? And next, he acknowledged his familiarity with the professor's work. So make sure that before you shortlist the faculty, you have some sort of awareness about what this faculty does, right? What is his background? Make sure that you have at least read 2 to 3 research papers or book chapters of this particular professors. So acknowledge your familiarity with the professor's work, and you don't randomly reach out to professors, right? So mention, let's say, any papers, book chapters, or research project, let's say, project reports, which sort of convinced you that this professor would be an ideal guide for me, which is very brilliantly done here, right? You can see it here. And he mentions the alignment of research interest, which is again another important part. And statement of intent. This should be the core part of an email that you send to faculty, right? So why, as to why are you reaching out to this faculty? So let's just quickly read this out. So I plan to apply to your department's PhD program for the upcoming session with my research focusing on sorry, XYZ, and I believe your expertise and experience in this field would be invaluable in guiding my academic journey, XYZ, right? So after acknowledging the familiarity with the professor's work, the candidate here has clearly mentioned that their research backgrounds aligns. That set the ground for inquiry about the program. So it's really important that you ask the professor that whether he's taking PhD students for the upcoming intake. So oftentimes what happens is that you both might be a great match. You both might be working in a similar area of uh, scholarship, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this supervisors, potential supervisors, is taking PhD students for the upcoming session. This is something that happened with me, right? So sometime they might be running out of the capacity to take new PhD students. They might already be working with, let's say, 4 to 5 candidates. So at times they will not be able to take you for the particular intake you're applying to. So inquire that whether the faculty is taking let's say students for the upcoming intake, and you express your willingness to engage further, which is done here, and attach your CV, which is very necessary, and a proposal if you find it relevant, right? Once you have all these aspects, I'm not saying write this way, but make sure that some of the aspects I mentioned here are there in your email, which is going to be of some help, right? And you can see the response this person has got from the professor. Oh, I have a message. All right. So I'll be showing the links by the end of the presentation. Yep. So this is a pretty positive response, and the faculty has shown a willingness to supervise this person, and he subsequently invited this candidate for a meeting. Right, and that was the end of the pre-application phase. Now that, let's say, you have more or less a solid foundation of the pre-application phase, I think we are ready to move on to the application phase. So the application phase, as I mentioned earlier, is let's say where you will be preparing the necessary application materials and revising, reviewing them, and submitting them on time, right? So as mentioned during the introduction, in this part of the presentation, I'll try to explain what a statement of purpose, uh, what a personal history statement is, and how it differs from a statement of purpose. And we'll briefly mention what are some of the other important application materials. So it's not, really possible to cover, what a statement of purpose within a 40-minute session, but I'll try my level best to, acquaint you with the structure of a statement of purpose. So starting with a statement of purpose, I mean, I know you already know this, but for the sake of presenting it, let me do it. A statement of purpose is a crucial part of your application. I would say it's a mandatory document which will have a significant impact on the final decision regarding your application, right? Let's say you have just, the minimum CGPA. You don't have, let's say, quote unquote, excellent grades and marks, and you don't have research experiences, right? So this is a document that where you could justify all these quote unquote flaws and convince the admission committee that you're an ideal candidate, right? Um, so basically, what a statement of purpose does is that it outlines your academic background, your academic trajectory, research goals, your academic interest, your career aspiration, and most importantly, how are you a good fit for the program that you're applying to, right? And it is usually between 500 to 1,000 words, but you should always check the program website to follow the instruction precisely. And basically, a strong SOP convinces you of it within the program, right? So again, the purpose of this document is to tell the admission committee that who you are, what your academic and professional background are, your interest, and how do you make a good fit for the program that you're applying. That's it. So let's take a sample SOP by one of our alumni from the chemistry department, who's currently a PhD scholar at the Department of Chemistry at University of Florida. And let's analyze its structure, right? Basically, to understand how to craft a standard statement of purpose, right? So this is again one of the many samples, and it's really important for you to remember that there is no one way of writing a statement of purpose, but there are multiple ways of doing it. So the SOP provided here is only for demonstration purposes, only for to acquaint you with the structure of a statement of purpose and how to build a narrative in this statement of purpose, right? So let us decode it one by one. So broadly speaking, this statement of purpose can be categorized into 5 different parts. The first part is introduction and motivation, and then academic trajectory. After that, future goals and why this particular university, extracurricular activities, and conclusion, right? So let me start off with introduction and motivation part, basically the first paragraph, right? So the faculties, the admission committee members, during the selection process, let's say, will be reading hundreds of statement of purposes on a daily basis. And from what I know, it's going to be a very exhaustive process. They're going to get bored for sure. So how do you, you know, make your statement of purpose stand out? So people usually start with what we call a quote unquote hook approach, right? People start with a genuine and a truthful um, personal anecdote, right? Or a quote that have inspired them. For example, here the applicant started with the quote, right? So this is a good approach. And coming to other aspects of the introduction and motivation part, the applicant here begins by discussing their passion for science and very clearly states that you know he has an interest in pursuing a PhD and his motivation for applying for a PhD program. So that what the introduction is about very clearly convinces his passion and what his motivation is, right? And when it comes to the second, third, and fourth paragraphs, it is broadly about the academic trajectory of this particular candidate or the journey the student followed. This is where he talks about, let's say, how he developed a passion for chemistry, right? In para 2, for example, he mentions that, his childhood experiences are something that sparked his interest in this field. Uh, Especially, you can see here that, how his passion was developed by his experiences at the school lab. So in the third paragraph, if you see, in the very next paragraph, he talks about his transition to advanced studies at IIT Gandhinagar. So he mentions how well he cleared the national entrance examination and his experiences at IIT Gandhinagar, and emphasizes that how brilliantly IIT Gandhinagar nurtured and helped him grow as a researcher. Right? For example, he talks about, let's say, the skills and techniques he learned, for example, synthesis, NMR, etc. and etc. Subsequently, in the fourth paragraph, he discusses his dissertation about the self-assembly of gold nanoparticles. And what was his achievement from this particular project? And he mentions about his publication subsequently. Right now, this gives an idea as to the admission committee about your preparations. How well are you prepared for your future studies, higher studies, and what sorts of experience and skills you bring to the table, right? Which is also the reason why you should be mentioning your achievements. Let's say you're talking about your project project experiences or other sorts of research experiences, right? Paragraph 4 talks about future goals and alignment with this particular university. Basically, why this university? This is again a core component of the statement of purpose, without which it is considered incomplete. So the candidate here, if you see, clearly mentioned that it is it is because of the research facilities available at this particular department that he's drawn to the university. And he also mentions his alignment of ongoing research projects at the department with his research interests and background. And most importantly, he, let's say, specifies the name of the faculty he's willing to work with. This is again very important. Let's say you have emailed to a professor and the professor encourage you to apply. You should be mentioning that so that the committee knows that this is a faculty backed applications, that the faculty already had a chance to interact with this candidate. And then while it is not mandatory, providing details about your um, social engagement and leadership skills, I would say will always be beneficial to have uh, a balanced profile, right? And here is the conclusion, right? So that's basically is a structure of a statement of purpose, or a structure of a standard statement of purpose. So let's look into the key takeaways from the statement of purpose. It is it will always be helpful to start with a genuine hook, a personal anecdote. Don't manipulate it. Write your truthful and genuine experiences, and clearly state your purpose and detail your academic trajectory, including your research experiences and the learnings from them. And most importantly, make sure to mention that uh, how does your background and research experiences and your future aspirations align with the program? How the program will help you reach where you want to reach, and how are you going to help the Department of Science, right? So for a balanced profile, you may also add your, social engagements and leadership skills, and provide a strong conclusion. Make sure that it has a chronological and a coherent order. With this being done, your statement of purpose, I believe, is good to go. And always make sure to proofread the document. You can reach out to your professors at times, your seniors, or maybe the writing studio at IIT Gandhinagar if they do that. Uh, and now, a personal history statement, or sometimes called a personal history and a diversity statement. Again, it's oftentimes it's not a mandatory document, right? But universities in the US usually encourage, admitting students from diverse backgrounds, right? So let's say there is no one way to fit into this diversity, but multiple ways. Let's say if you belong to a historically marginalized section of the society, or if you are specially able, you belong to sexual minorities, or a first generation learners, and any unique life experiences you had, which you believe have shaped the person you are, has to be mentioned in a personal history statement, right? So while a statement of purpose is about your academic and professional background, a personal history statement is specifically about your personal history and how are you a good fit to the diverse environment or a diverse atmosphere that is particular institute promotes. You can also mention your economic challenges, any responsibilities you had, right? And the idea, as I mentioned, let me repeat this again. The idea is to convince the admission committee that all these life experiences that you have had, let's say as a specially able person, or as being a first generation learner, or any other unique life experiences have shaped you to be a part of the highly diverse environment that this particular institute promotes, right? So that's basically is a personality statement. While it's not mandatory for many applications, it is often recommended to write a personal history statement or a diversity statement, as it will have a good impact on the outcome of your application, and you may also end up receiving some scholarship only because of your background, which is genuinely written. And these are some other important components of the presentation, or the application materials. A resume or a curriculum vitae is a mandatory document at times. Some universities, I believe, don't ask it, but it's a vital document when you reach out to professor for supervision, right? Um, so let me just turn off my phone. A curriculum vitae CV is generally preferred for application because it provides, compared to a resume, uh, it's more comprehensive when compared to a resume, right? And I would personally vouch for a CV unless it is specifically asked. Um, so you may start with a brief summary of your academic and professional background. Mention your degrees, institutions and majors, and any distinctions you have, right? And now you may uh, follow this with a concise overview of your professional experiences, research background, etc., and etc. And I would say focus more on clarity than aesthetics of the CV. And when it comes to a letter of recommendation, which is often called LOR, the universities usually ask 2 to 3 letter of recommendations, sometime 4 letter of recommendations, right? So it can be, let's say if you're applying for a PhD and they're asking for 3 letter of recommendation, 2 of the letters can be from, let's say, your supervisors, faculty members, and all, and one from, a professional referee, right? If you worked in the industry, you can get a letter from there. So, and also have a backup letter, right? So sometimes what happens is that the faculty members would back up due to some emergency. So uh, for a backup, reach out to, let's say, if they ask you to have 3 letters, reach out to 5 faculty members or 5 referees. And it has to be as detailed as possible, right? So sometimes one mistake that faculties from referees from India do is that they write it in, let's say, 1 page or half a page and make it very, very diplomatic, right? Which is, again, not a good approach. It has to be as detailed as possible, explain your academic abilities, work ethic, research potential, and character, and citing specific examples of this person working with you and examples of your excellency, right? And if you go to this particular link here, you can find a prompt by Stanford University on how to write letter of recommendation. So once you reach out to your faculty, make sure that you mention your requirements, right? And the writing sample is again a mandatory document. It can be your best research paper or an interim assignment or an excerpt from your dissertation. The idea of submitting a writing sample is to, tell them that, or evidence and that your critical writing skills and, you know, critical sophistication, right? And official transcript, grade sheets, and final certificate. Make sure that you have them in your hand as early as possible. And once you upload these transcripts, make sure to scan both the sides, right? For example, the transcript has 2 sides. One side explaining the grades and all, and the other side explaining the grading patterns, etc., and etc. And when it comes to language test, even before you even think of giving any language test, first do the shortlisting and go to the department website and make sure that the language test is actually required. Otherwise, don't waste a lot of money. Let's say, I don't know, 60,000, 70,000, or 20 on all this language tests. Same goes with GRE and other tests, right? So in many cases, in most of the cases, in fact, the if the sole medium of instruction for your master's program was in English, let's say if you're applying for a PhD, and if you're applying for a master's program, the medium of instruction was in English, the language, you would be waived off from the language test requirement. So shortlist the universities first and see if it is a requirement. Otherwise, a document from your institute stating that the sole medium of instruction for this program was in English would do, right? And the case of GRE is that it is again university specific. It is mostly not required, and at times required, and other times it's optional, right? And as supplementary materials, you can include, let's say, certificates of recognition and other publication materials. And coming to the last part of this presentation, this is the post application process, right? If your application is shortlisted, they will call you for an interview. From my personal experience of the interview, they asked me to introduce myself and ask some theory and subject-based questions, and why this program, right? And also make sure to ask you a question. This is a good thing to do while the interview, right? And let's say after a month or 1.5 months after the interview, you may receive your offer letter with funding and other program details. And sometime after that, you will receive an I-20 form, which is a document issued by the institute certifying your selection and funding, your language proficiency, etc., and etc. And this is a document that is required for your visa and, if I'm not wrong, required for your transit, right? And again, now that you might be thinking that you have an offer letter from your dream university, or at least a good university, and it's over. No, the actual struggle starts now. Getting a student visa for US is a lot of hard work. Let's say 2 to 3 months of sleepless nights and endless monitoring, and doing this DS-160 forms, paying service fees, booking slot for biometrics and interview. It takes a lot of time, but uh, PhD students usually get the appointment, and the visa process. Visa is easily approved for them if let's say it is a fully funded program, and if you're going to a reputed university. The same case with master's students, but they may be asked a lot of questions, and it is a little hard for them. And most importantly, many of these universities require your vaccination records. So make sure that you have these vaccinations done and you have their records. And in the absence of the vaccination records, show title lab report showing immunity to these diseases. And thank you so much for patiently listening to me for, let's say, 38 minutes. And if you require, let's say, additional resources or documents related to SOP resume, please scan this document, and I'll take questions now. Thank you.
Sure. So maybe I can open that sheet which has been shared with me and go with every question one after the other. Okay. So the first question says, what is the minimum duration to get PhD?
Let me open the sheet in my system, right? So what is the first, give me a second. Give me just a second. What is the minimum duration to get a PhD, right? So there is no minimum duration to get a PhD, right? Let's say once you have realized your area of expertise. Once you have identified this is a part I want to work in, it's pretty easy, right? Ideally, you should be starting before, let's say, 12 to 8 months before the application deadline, and that is enough, right? Yep.
Okay. So, what essential co-curricular skills are expected of the potential research students?
Right. So basically, no activities are like essential, I would say, but it adds to the overall appeal of your applications. And some universities, let's say, encourage taking students with some sort of social engagement. So again, that is not mandatory, but it is always beneficial.
Okay.
And let me read this out and how to obtain scholarships, right? So for PhD students, the scholarships are you are very often automatically eligible for scholarship, and you might also receive TA-ships and other fellowships. And if my knowledge serves me right, for master's program, they are usually self-funded, but you may expect some, um, let's say, external funding and TA-ships and alternative semesters. Again, once you've done the shortlisting, reach out to the department website, the people out there, and have an interaction with them. Right.
I don't have a research paper or a lot of projects. How should I highlight my application?
So it's not necessary that you have a research publications or a lot of projects. I know people from our institute itself who made it into, let's say, Harvard University and Stanford University without any publications. So at the end of the day, the for PhD students, the viability of your project, your passion and preparation matters the most.
Okay. There's one question in the chat box which says, I'm a second year MTech student. What is the best time to search for profession to approach?
What is the best time to approach for the professors to? Give me a second. I am not able to see the best time. Okay, I'm a second year MTech student. What is the best time to search for profession to approach or professors to approach? Hi, Pragya, can you make it clear? Is it profession or professor? All right, all right. So basically, I mean, again, there is no ideal time, right? People usually start it by the, let's say, second year while they're working on their, um, you know, master's dissertation, MTech dissertation. Or some people even take a break working on research projects and working at industry and figure out whether they fit into academia or industry. So ideally, you should start it by the third semester, right? At least start figuring out where you belong, what is your area of expertise. And once you figure that out, and it's going to be pretty much easy to, reach out to the professors. Then it would make some sense. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the sheet. When there's one more question in the chat box. Uh, while you're approaching professors through emails, how long should your abstract be to summarize your research interest?
So you can either send a um, full proposal, right? A tentative proposal, or or a synopsis, right? Or a summary of your research. So if you're writing a summary, it can be anywhere between, let's say, 500 words to 700 or 600. So that would be ideal. 500 minimum. Maybe.
So when we should start preparing for IELTS or TOEFL?
Again, I would say as early as possible if the program requires it. So the validity of IELTS is about 2 years, and TOEFL again another 2 years. So again, I would say do the shortlisting first, and only appear for these exams if and only your programs requires or mandates you to take this, tests. Otherwise, don't do it.
Which exam should I give IELTS or TOEFL?
I mean, usually both of them are accepted, and sometimes it's waivable. So
Okay.
both works.
Yes. Uh, Is it necessary to have PUR for applying to foreign universities?
So, what exactly is pure publications?
Position of responsibility.
No, no, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Again, as I mentioned before, uh, it is a plus, but it's not mandatory.
Okay. Right time to start approaching professors for PhD as a second year student.
I mean, we mentioned it all thing.
Yeah, yeah. How to find the appropriate scholarships and ensure funding.
I think we also mentioned this. PhDs are automatically eligible for a scholarship, and they receive tiership. And MS programs are usually self-funded, but they may end up receiving tierships and other financial aids, student loan, etc. and etc.
Yes. I'm planning to enroll in PhD after I work 1 year in a company. Does this 1 year gap affect my application and selection?
No, not usually. I myself, worked about 2 years after my master's. What matters is that, how do you justify this gap? This might be asked during your visa interview. I have seen people being asked about gap, right? So it's not a big deal, as long as you justify the gap. So fine.
Do we have to give certain exams to get admission or through interview selection will going to happen?
I think about the exams we have mentioned about GRE, TOEFL, IELTS. Interviews are usually there in many universities. Yes, you may have to go through an interview. Yep.
How did you choose to go for further studies, that too in a foreign country?
I chose not to answer that question. Thank you.
How to pick out which universities to apply to?
Right. Three, four things. I think I mentioned it during the presentation: alignment of your research background, availability of professors, ranking. And if you go to the QS website, you can see rankings of universities based on the subjects. Let's say if you want to pursue MTech in artificial intelligence or PhD, so it provides a comprehensive list of universities and their programs based on, rank based on subjects in universities. You can find it in the
Right.
QS. I'll share the link in the chat.
Okay. I have low percentage in my bachelor's and master's. So is it possible to get PhD admission?
Um, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? As long as you meet the minimum eligibility criteria, it doesn't matter if you have 68% or 73. So in my case, I was the student with lowest CGPA during my master's here at IIT Gandhinagar. So if a person like me can make it, of course, they're all smart people, definitely.
GRE scores versus scholarship overview.
Um, that's again university specific. Gary has mentioned these days is not literally required. It is either optional or required or not needed. So again, once you shortlist a university or before you shortlist a university, check the website to make sure whether it is required or not. That I personally believe it doesn't have any relationship with the scholarship, if that what the question is about.
Right, the question isn't like fully elaborated. Next one, how can I be able to pursue my MA in English or comparative literature in the US? What is the procedures for scholarship?
Um, right, and I'm not sure. Like comparative literature again, MA programs are not usually funded, right? So unless and until you have some financial background to cover the expenses, uh, don't go. Right? The University of Penn and all offers Harvard and early programming compared to education. So it's not usually funded. You can reach out to me via my email, so I might be able to connect with you people who are pursuing, let's say, PhD in comparative literature and all. I'll share my email address later.
You'll share the PDF as well, right? The presentation that you have.
Sorry?
You'll share the PPT as well, right?
Right, I'll share it. I'll share it. Yep,
Right.
definitely.
Okay. What's the role of language to get opportunity in abroad universities like US and Europe?
So fundamental language is required. Doesn't matter where you're going, Europe or US. The fundamental language is required. So what happened with people like us from India is that we don't have an exposure uh, often where we talk solely English, right? So with spoken English, we may have little difficulties, but again, that is not considered a flaw. So just have the fundamentals that would do.
When should one begin the application process for PhD admissions in the US?
I think I mentioned it ideally 1 month before deadline.
Yes. What are the specific funding options available?
Scholarships are available, PAships are available, external funding, etc. and etc. And sometimes student loans and all.
Top universities where stipends or scholarships are available for Indian PhD students or masters.
Again, I'm not aware of any university that fully funded one's master's program. Um, some opportunities will be available in places like, let's say, University of California. Again, you're supposed to go to the website and check it or verify it. Again, PhD scholars are like PhD candidates, once selected, are automatically eligible for funding. So no need to worry about PhD scholarship, I believe. They will either receive a scholarship or PhD or a combination of both.
I'm looking for a university with top-notch anthropology security, fully funded scholarship essential for my career and goals.
Right? Um, Anthropology is again a very vast field, right? So many branches of anthropology, environmental anthropology, cultural, socio-cultural, political anthropology. So better shortlist the professors you want to work with, right? So that's how you decide which university is better for you, right? Almost all the universities fund better. You will have that, I believe, financial stability with that funding, which will not affect your studies while you're at the university, while you're doing your research. So again, go to the top colleges like Stanford, Harvard, John Hopkins, right? If you're looking for a combination of, let's say, financial stability, which is important, but the academic atmosphere and the alignment of your background matters.
There is one question in the chat box. Does an LOI from a noted activist work other than to form academic professors?
I'm not able to see the questions. Can you please
Uh,
repeat it to me?
okay, I can. This question was sent to me on a DM. So,
Right. I haven't received it. What is a noti activist? I don't know. Can somebody explain me what is a noti activist? All right. But then letter of recommendations are usually required from um, professors or industrial connections. Universities like, let's say, if you're applying to the Religious Studies Department of University of California, they even allow letters from, let's say, your religious guru or some religious organizations and all. So that would do. not sure about the actors part.
Will you like to discuss some preparation tips and share some material for online study guide for IELTS and TOEFL?
I'll do that after the presentation. I'll share the materials I collated during my preparation. I'll share it with the alumni affairs team.
Okay. How much of an English language barrier will I have to face during masters or PhD abroad or foreign countries?
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, fundamental understanding is very necessary, right? And you should be knowing how to write and how to read, let's say, complex research papers and all, which is very necessary. So, um, like fundamental understanding is necessary, and so we all face this issue with the language. So that's not a big thing, I guess. I have seen people, I know from people who are currently at abroad, in US and some of the best universities. When they reached, they had a lot of struggle picking up the language and communicating with people. Some of us usually face that problem, but we'll catch it up. We're smart people, right? So that is to say, anytime skills and passion over language, you will learn the language for sure. Uh, it won't be a barrier as much as you would expect it to be. Yep.
Okay. If I want to do PhD in the field of public policy sustainability, okay, I mean that's the question. That's it. The question. If I
Right.
want to do PhD
PhD for which department?
in the
That's
field of public policy, sustainability, and climate change,
okay. Let me tell you this. I have a list. Um, so for social policy and all, you could prefer, let's say, uh, Harvard University. And if you're planning for United Kingdom, Oxford is a good option. Uh, and Stanford and National University of Singapore, Edinburgh, or University of California, UCB. And Yale is a good place. MIT is a good place. And again, in Sweden, Stockholm is a good place. And this seems to be an interdisciplinary research, right? Public policy, sustainability, and climate change. You can also reach out to, other anthropology departments and professors out there. Yep.
okay. Uh, what are the things apart from academics that play a crucial role in your admission to foreign universities?
Apart from academics that play a crucial role in your admission to foreign universities. Um, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, if you have some sort of engagement in, let's say, some social activities, um, your social profile, not social profiles actually, your history of social engagement is a bonus, and that's it, man. Don't need anything important.
Okay.
And of course, as I mentioned earlier, a personal history statement often helps. If you're genuinely from historically marginalized background, if you had your struggles, make sure to mention that in your personal history statement. Or if they the university do not ask for the personal history statement, mention it in 1 or 2 words in the statement of purpose itself. That would help.
Okay. How difficult is it to do masters in AI or ML from Ivy League colleges?
Um, I'm not the right person to answer this question, but if you know the students, I can help you connect with people. Yep.
What are the financial expenses for pursuing MS program in the US?
I don't know. It costs a lot, but I may not be able to tell you that cost.
Okay.
I mean, when
How
it
to
comes
stay
to
connected?
the room rent and all, I might be able to tell you that let's say accommodation ranges anywhere from $600 to 1,200, and if you want a really good place, it can go up to $2,000 a month. And food and other expenses will come about, let's say, $600 to $500 a month. And
What
For master's program, you have to take a uh, health insurance. For PhD scholars, the university gives an insurance for the cover the insurance expenses for the students.
what about stability of living and working after doing masters?
What about stability of living? I will not be able to answer this question at the moment. Sorry.
How to stay connected with a potential supervisor throughout the application process after receiving a reply?
I haven't done that. You can reach out to them. Only reach out to them if there is a genuine concern, right? Let's say if you need some help with the applications, if you have doubts, don't reach out for the sake of staying connected. Reach out if you have genuine concerns, doubts, or needs help that you believe the particular faculty could do. That's it.
I think that's all of the questions. Other questions are
All right.
mostly either repetitive or we have answered them once.
All right. I
So,
think let's call it a day. We don't have any more questions, I guess.
Hi, Rashid. Sorry.
Hi, hi.
Hi. I had a small question, like if I can go with it, just one question.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So first of all, let me start by congratulating you, having known you
Thank you.
personally. So yeah, so my question is like whenever you're emailing to the professors or like cold emailing to the professors, right? So it may be for PhD applications or for any like job or anything, but like I would like you to go through it like quickly, like if you're introducing yourself, right?
Right,
So what are the like things that I should touch upon? So just not just my interest, but how do I like actually introduce myself? So this could help me with any type of you know professional development, this sort of a thing. So
right.
yeah.
Basically, you want to know how to, how do you introduce yourself while reaching out to professor, right? Is that the question is about?
Yeah, sure.
Right. Again, as I mentioned during the presentation, there is no one way of introducing yourself, but you should tell the faculty who you are, your name to say. Maybe if you find it relevant, let's say you have worked in a field that might be of interest to this particular faculty, mention that I have worked here and there, right? And then tell your academic background. That would suffice, I think. Don't focus a lot on introduction first. That would do for a
Okay.
good introduction.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
okay, I think that's all for the questions. I do not have any questions on my chat box at least. Okay. So thank you, Rashid, for this amazingly descriptive session. I think this is going to be useful for people across every course or program or the stuff that they have been taking up for the time being. I think it's going to help everyone with the resources that you have collected for so far. And thanks to Alumni Relations as well for this great session. We have been organizing such sessions under a series called Insight Series with Alumni, and where we talk to different students from various backgrounds, from various years of passing out, and we usually get a lot of insight from their discussions. I also thank Samarpita ma'am for organizing and looking into such amazing sessions. We'll look forward to the next one. Until then, goodbye. Rashid, if
Thank
you
you.
have anything to say.
Uh, I would say, once you graduate, you of course do monetary help to students, but do sessions of this kind for your juniors once you graduate and get into a good place, right? That's it.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for patiently listening to me, everyone. Have a good day.